Hello world, welcome back to the Razor RC, and today we're going to be talking about the build on the Schumacher Racing Cat L1R, which is almost done here on the right. And we're also going to be talking about the differences between the Cat L1 Evo and what they changed with the Cat L1R. I happen to have both. As you can see, my Cat L1R almost done building. I do have to move the electronics over from my Cat L1 Evo and paint the body, and I'll be pretty much done. Also waiting on a few option parts. I'm going with a carpet setup, so I'll have a link in the description below with the new parts I'm running that change the geometry. So I'm pretty much going to try to replicate the carpet racing setup that they provide in the manual as recommend for that. It does require some different options, but first off, definitely if you want a Schumacher racing vehicle or pretty much Schumacher racing anything, check out discountrcstore.com. That's where I picked mine up. They carry the full range of parts, and the really cool thing about Schumacher is when they release a new vehicle, they also release all the option parts that you might want on the day of the release, so you can pick up everything that you might want to convert your L1R more into a carpet vehicle. I think out of the box it's really more of an AstroTurf style vehicle with the kit parts, and so when you go carpet, you definitely want to stiffen up some parts, different springs, maybe some different yokes and stuff. So we'll have links in the description below, and Discount RC Store does carry all that stuff, so it's really nice that they are a provider here in the US where you can pick up all your Schumacher parts to get your Schumacher racing stuff. So here we go, L1 Evo here. As you can see, it's a little bit of a different vehicle. I think the general design is similar, but almost all the parts seem actually quite different. The main thing is obviously the chassis. This is much more rectangular chassis, very stiff chassis out of the box. They went more of an oval shaped, especially here in the back, a lot more trimmed down. I think it keeps it lighter, adds more flex. Also, you can see the upper braces, which was something that I felt was too stiff in the original vehicle. Much thicker carbon fiber pieces here up top in the L1 Evo, and they really tried to change the flex here in the new L1R. I think that was something that they kind of listened to as well. I think Schumacher actually watches my videos, because almost everything I kind of talk about with regards to the vehicles, they make changes in the next edition. They did it with the LD2. Seems like they did that with the L1R as well. So up front, yeah, things are quite different, especially even the arms are a little bit different. They changed the style. They now have steel inserts in both the arms and the spindles, and just use a regular screw. On the old one, they had kind of these special silver colored screws, which were kind of threading the arms and not really into the the yokes or whatever directly. So that was a bit of a difference. They changed the steering arms as well. Now they have adjustable carbon fiber pieces to change your steering arms to adjust like the Ackerman on these steering links. Shock towers look the same to me. I couldn't tell any other difference. The front bumper looks very similar. Didn't see too much difference. I think they did change the outdrives as well, so they went with like a longer style outdrive, so they're using shorter CVAs or CVDs with the longer outdrive, so that is another change. I think they also changed the shocks slightly with the shock shafts to make them a little bit longer, get you that longer droop. So the shock package is definitely a little bit different. They do have different springs as well. I recommend the black springs, front and rear if you're running carpet. That's pretty much a standard setup. And then even the hubs or the yokes are different. So I have aluminum ones here on my L1 Evo, but they went 8 degree out of the box here with the plastic L1R. That was an option part on the L1 Evo. Down the middle, yeah, again, everything is pretty much different. Chassis braces, chassis battery mount is quite different. They moved up forward. The old one uses kind of these thumb screws, which I found a little bit annoying, a little bit more of a hassle. They went with the quick release style, which is nice. Moved all the weight up forward. And then I think the battery height is a little bit different too. So now they have basically different upper stiffeners here, and then the rear seems raised up as well as compared to the old one. A little bit hard to tell, but yeah, a little bit different design. I don't know if the center transmission changed much. I mean, definitely like the slipper pads look a little bit different, much more drilled out. I assume it's a little bit different because they did kind of raise the rear end, but a little bit hard to tell upon inspection. The build is, I would say, not super easy. Definitely belt drive vehicles are much more complex. This does have tons of optional tuning that most vehicles don't have, including like the front adjustable brake. does have that center slipper. Obviously has all the belt tensioners and stuff, so it is a little bit different. Has a lot more options for setup, so it is a little bit more work. Now in terms of things I would recommend in the manual to go through, it does have a lot of things to read through. There's a lot of text. I highly recommend you read everything. You will need to drill the shock caps. They do have little bleeder holes, and you have to pick which side you want. So you do need like a 1.5 millimeter drill bit. That's something a little bit unusual. It does have non-machine pistons, so unfortunately they are not machine Delrin pistons. It does use standard O-rings in the shocks rather than X-rings, so that's something you maybe want to look into upgrading. The pulleys do require a little seating glue, so you do need to, a little more work building this thing than I think your typical vehicle. Some suggestions on this little shim right here. I used 2 of them for A rather than the suggested one. It just had too much play. I recommend doing that just to get a little bit better fitment. Make sure you use a little grease on those O-rings for sure. That's something not a lot of people realize. On the center spider gears, definitely check those out. There are only 2 in each disc, so that's a little bit unusual. A lot of vehicles use 4. They also use an O-ring style gasket rather than like a paper gasket or whatever. So yeah, Schumachers are a little bit different, require a little bit more attention, like the turnbuckles and stuff. Make sure you're using the right lengths, make sure you're using the right rod ends as well. There are different styles. Obviously things are left-handed and right-handed as most other vehicles. Any other suggestions? Yeah, definitely use thread lock on any metal to metal pieces. It's not always called out in the manual, so I would recommend checking that out. Just something, a good idea, especially on these more complicated vehicles with a lot of moving parts. Honestly, one interesting thing I noticed is they talked about the Cat L1 stock spec, or L1R stock spec. I don't think they sell one at the time of this video. Sounds like maybe something that is coming in the future. A little bit of a clue there. Other suggestions? Yeah, here on step 30. It was a little bit hard to find these parts, these plastic washers, 1.5 millimeters, but there is a little note there. It is on the separate sprue. You will have to trim them. Most of the parts are not on sprues, so that's kind of cool, but a lot of the spacers and shock piston stuff you will need to cut out yourself, but most of the parts are not on sprues, so that's pretty nice. Any other tips? Last thing I would recommend is on the rear diff, I did space it a little bit more to the left-hand side, so there is basically this belt tensioner here. I found it kind of too close to the right-hand side, so I basically spaced the diff, I guess, over to the right. Sorry, not over to the left. So basically put all the shims on the left-hand side, kind of moved it over. That way it wasn't rubbing so much on these bearings and seemed to be a little bit more appropriate for the spacing on the disc. But that's pretty much it. Otherwise, build went fine. I am going with this carpet setup, so there are a lot of option parts you will need. I'm going to just buy the parts that change the geometry, not so much the stiffness. This should be a lot more improved over the L1 Evo in terms of stiffness, but I will have links. And the last thing is I did notice a basically manual error. So it says to use this U8453 riser if you flip the basically the rear hinge pin holder. I think that's the wrong part. I think it's 7977. We'll have to see, but that didn't seem quite right. So hopefully that's just a typo and I'm ordering the right part. But that's about it for the L1R. Definitely check out Discount RC Store if you want any Schumacher parts. They are, in my opinion, the best place to pick up. Really nice folks. They're out there in Michigan. I think pretty quick shipping throughout the whole U.S. within 2 to 3 days at most. And the greatest thing is they do carry all the parts. So Schumacher obviously is not as big of a brand here in the U.S., but they are making inroads, and it's nice that they are supporting them pretty well. So hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to hit the like, share, subscribe buttons. Look for more videos soon. Thanks for watching.